if you look at our first power play of the game, we had tons of scoring chances. I mean, it's just a question of taking a bounce and going in the net. Do I blame the power play? No, not at all. Especially we're even tonight. They didn't score either, and I think no, they were opportunistic on their chances, and that's the way they beat us.
No, we still believed. We played well. We felt like we played the whole game pretty well, and it was just a matter of getting that bounce, and we still believe in the last minute that we can we're gonna get that bounce, and we had a lot of chances, a lot of shots on goal, but they cleared everything, all the rebounds, and their goalie didn't give many rebounds, so it was tough to create anything, second opportunities.
They had a lot of guys had no experience in the playoffs, basically half our team, and we're playing an experienced team that knows how to win, and the battle's very hard. That's got a terrific goaltender and plays solid and structured defensive play, and we knew it was going to be extremely hard. And our young guys were nervous to start. They were precipitating their plays. Basically, they learned to execute under pressure.
Significant error on the history books to talk about this year in that regards with this team and the way they played and the way they worked all year long and continue to work and find ways to be successful given the situations we're in right from the start. That's the work ethic and the passion of which they played and the ability to continue to be a good team, and that's what I think this year is about. We certainly had some different scenarios throughout the year, but that's what this team certainly did, proved, and showed all year long.
Well, Penguin fans, you probably have a lot to be proud about regarding your team. A nothing short of spectacular effort in the final 3 months of the season without Sidney Crosby and Evgeny Malkin, but a 1-0 defeat in Game 7 of the first round of the Stanley Cup playoffs at Consol Energy Center once again prevented the Penguins from making a deep playoff run. I'm Penguins Trib beat reporter Rob Rossi, and I'm going to be joined by a lot of people in this year-ending video. First is columnist Joe Starkey, and Joe, Alex Kovalev was brought here to help win a playoff series, and it's kind of tough to do that on the bench.
Well, you could have made a case that Alex Kovalev should have been scratched for this game. He stunk in the series. It wasn't just a passenger. He was a disruptive passenger hurting his own team. So scratch him before the game, not during the game, especially when he was their best player, I thought, in the first period. Not his fault. Nobody can do anything with his passes. Yes, he's a risky player, but to not have him out there in the 6-on-4 at the end of the game was utterly ridiculous and inexcusable by Coach Dan Bilesma.
And the Penguins were looking for a great effort by goaltender Marc-Andre Fleury in Game 7. He didn't have a great Game 5 or a Game 6, but he certainly turned in probably one of his signature performances in Game 7. Fellow Trib columnist Kevin Gorman here, and you talked about Fleury needing to be the best player for the Penguins in this game. He was. It still wasn't good enough.
Well, he needed to be the best player on the ice, not just for the Penguins, because the Penguins could produce absolutely no offense for him. And so he needed to stop every shot imaginable. Do not blame Marc-Andre Fleury one bit for the goal that he allowed. But the Penguins had lost the 3 games they had lost, and prior to this, Game 7, they had Fleury had allowed 4 goals or more in each game. In this one, he stops 23 or 24 shots. The goal clearly not his fault, but Marc-Andre Fleury carried the Penguins through this season into these playoffs and really to Game 7. If it's not for him, I don't think they're even here. But I thought the crowd got behind him at the end, but it was a little bit too late. They should have been carrying him into this game, not out of it.
Flower said that meant a lot to him, and he was probably the MVP of this team this season without question. But as I come to fellow Penguins Trib beat reporter Josh Owie, Josh, they were missing 2 guys that have won some MVP. Sidney Crosby, who was a regular season MVP in 2007, probably the best player in the world. Evgeny Malkin, the MVP of the team that won the Stanley Cup in 2009. 14 goals in round 1. Maybe you should have seen that coming without these 2, but certainly you got to think this might have gone differently if they were in it.
Yeah, Rob, it was kind of painful to turn around from where we were sitting and see Sidney Crosby sitting beside Ray Shero in the GM's box. The look on his face said it all. You had to feel bad for the kid, and you have to feel like if just one of those 2 guys were playing in this series, the Penguins probably win it. Crosby and Malkin would have been enough to put them over the edge against Tampa, but I got to be honest, I think the future is still very bright for these Penguins. We've learned a lot about them with Crosby and Malkin out of the lineup. This is a terrific defensive team. Marc-Andre Fleury, I think, even though he lost this game, erased a lot of the memories from last season against Montreal. He is maturing as a top-flight goaltender in this league. put Crosby and Malkin on this team next year. They don't lose any big names, maybe a couple of role players, but boy, this is going to be a good team if they're healthy.
Let's talk about the future, guys. This is a team that is built around 3 centers and a goaltender, and they've got an emerging young stud defenseman in Chris Letang. But I do wonder myself what they need to do in the offseason. It's been 2 years now since they won the Stanley Cup, and a second-round exit last year, a first-round exit this year. The East is getting better, as you see by Tampa Bay. Joe, starting with you, if you can do one thing to this team in the offseason, what move is it?
Well, it's the same thing we've been talking about for years, and that is a goal-scoring winger, although I think it came out now after the series James Neal was hurting. I think he had an injured hand, from what I understand. I also think he was dealing with some type of ailment, some mysterious ailment. I think he's going to be a good player with a Sidney Crosby or an Evgeny Malkin, so that may be your answer there. But other than that, really, this team is set to contend for multiple Stanley Cups, assuming Sidney Crosby comes back in full health and that his concussion problems don't linger.
Kevin, I think that's the biggest question going into this offseason. What Sidney Crosby are we going to get back? The fact remains he did not play a hockey game after January 5th, and it's a scary proposition to think that there's no guarantee he's going to be ready for training camp. Do you plan, if you're the Penguins, on having the Sidney Crosby and Evgeny Malkin, who's coming off of significant knee surgery at the beginning of next season?
I don't think it's as important for them to be there at the beginning of the season as it is for them to be there at the end of the season, as we witnessed tonight, that the Penguins really desperately need these guys to be successful in the playoffs. And so I think they've made the perfect move by not rushing either Crosby or Malkin back for this playoff series to try to pull out a chance of winning a Stanley Cup. They have a very young core of a team, and I think they have a team that can win multiple Stanley Cup championships with those two as the centerpiece. And I think it's a key thing that if the Penguins took their time and let them recover from their injuries, I don't think there's any rush to have a certain timetable to have Sidney Crosby back, but to make sure that when you get him back, that you're getting the Sidney Crosby that we know, that we've seen, and that is the best player in the game when healthy.
Josh, I got 3 words for you. Power play coach. Do they need one?
Well, I don't think it would be a bad idea, Rob. I think Dan Biles was a heck of a good hockey coach, but I go back to a conversation I had with him last July when Mike Yeo had left his coach, Todd Reardon came in. I asked him, hey, is Todd Reardon going to take over Mike Yeo's power play responsibilities, or will Tony Granato take those over? Dan Biles said, and I quote, no, that's on me. And as good of a year as he had, and I think he's going to win the Jack Adams Award as Coach of the Year, he obviously is not a great power play mind, and I realize he didn't have Crosby and Malkin, but you know what? The power play wasn't that good with those guys. Is it a bad idea to bring in a power play coach? No, it's not. Obviously, radical changes need to be made to this power play.
Well, you know, you can talk about a lot of things regarding this Pittsburgh Penguin team, but I think the end of the season, the word you're going to look at is determination. They were a remarkably determined team over the final 3 months. A lot of teams wouldn't have got to a Game 7 without the guys they didn't have in the lineup. We didn't even talk about Matt Cook, who was suspended for this series. Lord knows what he may have done for them on the penalty kill. On a personal note, it's been 5 great playoff runs, leading what I feel is the best hockey coverage team in town, one of the best in the country. I've enjoyed every minute of it, but I'm going to hand the microphone now to a guy who's probably going to be playing a lot bigger role in it next year than I am. And as I sign off for Joe Starkey, Kevin Gorman, Josh Oey, enjoy the face-offs.
Thank you, Rob. Gentlemen, how about a round of applause for Rob Rossi, the best in the business and the best dressed man in the business, if I might say.
For Trip Total Media, happy off-season.